I should have refused that return the second I saw the tag. It would have been easy. One sentence. Sorry, this is final sale. I've said it 1,000 times to people angrier than him. But that night I needed the hours, I needed the job, and I needed my manager to stop staring at the metric screen with my name glowing yellow. So I overrode the system once, for what felt like a harmless little ceramic nothing. Now I'd trade every overtime paycheck I've ever earned just to erase the feeling of paper cutting into my fingertips and something tugging back from the other side. I work the returns counter at a regional discount retailer, which is corporate's polite way of saying we're the cheap place people go when everything else in their life is getting more expensive. Lane 3 is my lane. Under the overhead sign, someone taped a little card years ago. Please have receipt ready. The T in receipt peeled off long ago, so it reads receipt. Nobody fixes it. The belt is scuffed where carts ram it, and there's a permanent gray ghost of dirt around the spot where I stand 8 hours a day. That night, the store was in its usual closing time mood. Fluorescent lights too bright, the smell of cheap detergent and stale popcorn from the bargain snack aisle, a low hum of tired conversations. January means half the returns are unwanted gifts, and the other half are people who bought things they shouldn't have, then looked at their bank apps and panicked. Our KPI dashboard, Dana's favorite toy, had been flashing all afternoon. She kept drifting past lane 3 with that manager trying to look friendly smile. "Jordan, your turnaround time's creeping up," she said around 8. "Corporate wants under 2 minutes per guest. Just a reminder." I nodded because what else do you do? It's not like I can control when someone shows up with a box of 30 mismatched kitchen knives and no packaging. By 10:30, my feet buzzed and my voice had settled into autopilot. "Hi there, do you have your receipt?" "Okay, let me just scan that for you." "Yep, you're all set. Have a good night." Most of the weird stuff we get goes straight to the salvage cage in the back, a chain link box with a padlock, a clipboard, and a smell like damp cardboard and old plastic. If something's broken, missing parts, or just too cursed looking to put back on the shelves, it goes there. We're not supposed to say cursed. We say non-resellable. At 10:42, according to the POS log, he walked up. I didn't know his name then. Later, I'd see it in the system enough times that it started to feel like a typo in my own life. At that moment, he was just a man in a faded ball cap and layered flannel, carrying a small box in both hands like it was fragile and heavier than it looked. "Evening," I said. "Returns or exchange?" "Return," he said. "Didn't work out." He set the box on the belt. It was one of our generic white cartons for breakables, sealed with store tape. Someone had written "figurine clearance" on the top in black marker. The handwriting wasn't mine or Keisha's. It looked older, maybe from another store. "Receipt?" I asked. He slid over a crumpled strip of paper. Our logo at the top, timestamp 2 days old. Near the bottom, Home Accent, CLR, $4.97. So far, so normal. "Anything wrong with it?" I asked, because we're supposed to. "Just not what I thought," he said. His eyes flicked up to the ceiling camera dome and back. "I'd rather not keep it in the house." People say stuff like that about ugly lamps and noisy fans all the time. I shrugged and started the process. Scan receipt, scan item, choose reason. I broke the tape and opened the box. Inside, nestled in tissue paper that looked refolded too many times, was a small ceramic figure. It was a person on their knees, no face, just a smooth oval where the features should be. The glaze was a pale, almost flesh-colored beige with a sheen that made it look faintly wet, even under harsh fluorescent light. Around the neck was a red clearance tag, the actual cardboard tag you'd find on a rack, not painted on. Someone had looped it with twine like a makeshift necklace. The barcode on the tag wasn't one of ours. "Was this from our store?" I asked before I could stop myself. He chewed the inside of his cheek. "Yeah, clearance aisle. Didn't have a box, so they gave me that one." I checked the receipt again. The line matched the price. The SKU looked right. Someone had definitely scanned something when they sold it. I scanned the figurine. The terminal gave an annoyed little squeal, and the screen flashed a message I've seen too many times. "Item not found." I scanned the clearance tag out of habit. Same thing. No item found. Behind the man, a line was forming. A woman with a blender, a guy with 4 packs of batteries, a teenager worrying a cracked phone case. Somewhere behind me, a cartwheel squeaked. I could almost feel Dana watching the queue time graph. "I'll just override it." I shouldn't have said that. My stomach did a small, cold twist even as the words came out. We're trained not to override anything we can't verify. Loss prevention loves catching override abuse. But it was late, the line was growing, and the man in the ball cap had that tired, desperate look. "Please," he said quietly, "I just don't want it anymore." I typed in my ID, hit manual return, selected defective/other, and forced the amount to $4.97. A big blue approval box popped up. Authorization required. Enter PIN or swipe manager key. I glanced toward the front end. Dana was at a register, closing out a drawer. I tapped the service bell. She looked over, saw the blue box, and sighed. She walked over, heels clicking too sharply for the hour. "What's up?" she asked, already reaching for her badge. "Clearance return," I said. "System's not recognizing the SKU, but the receipt's legit." She skimmed the paper, glanced at the figurine, and made a face. "Yikes, that's ugly," she said. "Just mark it salvage. We'll eat the $5. She swiped her card, punched in her PIN. The box vanished. A tiny green line in the corner confirmed it. Approved. The receipt printer coughed to life, spitting out a fresh strip of thermal paper. I handed the man his refund slip. "There you go," I said. "Back on the card in 3 to 5 business days." "Keep the thing," he said, already backing away. "I don't want it." He left without a cart, without looking back. I set the figurine aside in the gray tote we use for to-be-processed salvage. It sat there on its knees, clearance tag twisted, twine digging into the glazed neck. For a second, it felt like its blank face was tilted up at me, waiting. I shook it off and called the next customer. It wasn't until my break 15 minutes later that I noticed the extra line. In the break room, the one with off-white walls, a humming vending machine, and a poster about workplace safety curling at the corners, I finally pulled my copy of the override receipt from my apron. We're supposed to keep them in case LP has questions. I spread it on the table while the microwave hummed behind me. The top looked normal. Store logo, date, time, lane number, my name. The description of the return, the amount, the last 4 digits of the card. At the bottom, under the usual "Thank you for shopping with us," there was one more line. It looked like part of the print. Same gray, same font, but I was sure it hadn't been there at the counter. First, the total. Total due, 0.00. Right beneath it, a sentence that wasn't supposed to be on any receipt. You owe the tag. I stared until my eyes burned. I flipped the receipt over. Blank. Held it up to the fluorescent light. No watermark, no prank stamp, no smudge. The microwave beeped too loud in the empty room. I jumped, nearly dropping both my dinner and the slip. "That's not funny," I muttered, though nobody had joked. It had to be a glitch, some misaligned test template. Maybe corporate was playing with new messaging. Maybe someone had swapped the footer text as a joke and it only printed on certain lanes. But glitches don't usually sound like accusations. Glitches don't feel like they're aimed at you. I almost crumpled the receipt and tossed it. Instead, I folded it once, very carefully, then tucked it back into my apron pocket. I told myself it was because LP might want to see the weird printout. The truth is, deep down, I already knew this wasn't the kind of mistake you fix by clearing the print queue. And that one stupid override, my little act of being reasonable, had just opened a tab I didn't understand. If that message had only shown up once, I might have bullied myself into forgetting it. Printer's glitch. Thermal paper streaks. We've had whole rolls where every third character looks like it's melting. You curse, change the roll, move on. But glitches are supposed to be random. This wasn't. After my break, I slid the receipt back into my apron and tried to forget the way that last line felt aimed at me. The rest of the shift went how closing shifts always go. A blur of tired faces, half-hearted complaints, and the constant thump of someone restocking a shelf just out of sight. My body did the work while my brain looped 4 words. You owe the tag. Every time I turned, my eyes snagged on the gray salvage tote where I'd left the figurine. It sat on the lower shelf, just at the edge of my vision. I could see the loop of red around its neck, the little rectangle of cardboard hanging crooked like it had been twisted one turn too many. Twice I thought the tag had shifted, angled a little differently, like it was facing a new direction. Twice I told myself it was just me turning my head, fluorescent glare playing tricks. At 11:25, 15 minutes before close, Keisha rolled up with a U-boat full of go-backs. "You almost done?" she asked, leaning on the counter. Her beanie said, "This is my tired hat." "I want to lock that door and pretend this building doesn't exist until tomorrow." "3 more in line," I said. "Then I'll cash out." Her gaze dropped to the salvage tote. She wrinkled her nose. "What funeral home threw up in our store?" she said. "Guy brought it back," I said. "Clearance. System has no idea what it is." She reached down like she was going to pick it up. My throat tightened. "Don't," I said, sharper than I meant. She froze, eyebrows up. "Okay, dang. Didn't know it was your new girlfriend." I forced a laugh that felt too thin. "Sorry, LP's on a chain of custody kick. They'll combust if anyone moves salvage without logging it." At 11:25, that part at least was true. Lou loves his clipboard more than most of his relatives. Keisha smirked and backed off. "Fine. Let the creepy little dude sit there and judge us then. I'm taking these to seasonal. Holler if you find any more haunted bargains." The U-boat rattled away, her humming fading around the corner. I finished the last returns, shut down my lane, counted the drawer. My hands sorted bills and coins on autopilot, while my brain replayed that extra line on the receipt until the words didn't even sound like English anymore. You owe the tag. When Dana finally waved me toward the back, I grabbed the salvage tote and headed for the cage. I told myself that once the figurine was behind chain link and a padlock, it would stop feeling like it was my problem. The salvage cage lives in a dead corner of the back room where the lights always seem a notch dimmer. The concrete's scarred with old pallet marks. Someone hung a teamwork poster once. The corners water-stained and curling. I spun the padlock, popped it open, swung the door wide, and bent to slide the tote onto the lower shelf. The figurine had fallen over. I was sure I'd left it sitting upright, centered in the bin. Now it was on its side, like someone had bumped the shelf. The red tag had slid so the cardboard square was jammed under its chin, the twine digging into the ceramic throat. "Probably just shifted," I muttered. "It's fine." I reached in to set it upright. The second my fingertips brushed the glaze, my skin prickled. Not like a shock, more like touching metal that's a few degrees too cold, just enough for all my nerves to flinch. Up close, the clearance tag looked wrong. Our tags have a particular red, too bright, corners a little rounded. This one was darker, like old blood on paper. And the text on it wasn't a SKU. In simple block letters it said, Ode. I blinked. The word was gone. In its place, a normal barcode and a string of numbers. My heart tripped. A strip along my index finger stung, like I dragged it along paper too fast. When I looked, there was no cut, just a faint, pale line. The overhead lights flickered once, buzzed, and steadied. "Get it together," I whispered. "You're tired. It's late. Everything looks haunted when you're clocking out." I set the figurine upright, tucking it firmly into the tote. I slid the bin onto the shelf, pulled the cage door shut, clicked the padlock closed. Metal on metal, solid and final. As I walked away, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The feeling wasn't something is behind you, it was something is kneeling just inside that cage, watching you leave. Lou was waiting near the time clock. "Price," he said. He always uses last names, like first names cost extra. "You override something I need to know about?" He had a plastic case file tucked under his arm. His LP vest wasn't fully zipped yet, radio clipped to his shoulder. His badge lanyard clicked softly when he shifted. "Manager approved clearance return," I said. Dana swiped. "Why?" He flipped through the stack and tapped a line. I saw my own name in the middle of a row of text. "This one," he said. "Manual return, 497, reason code defective/other. You wrote system error in the note." "I didn't write that," I said. He squinted. "Says you did." "I put clearance item not found. Customer insists it's ours," I said. "I don't write system error. That's what corporate says when they don't want to explain something." He smirked for half a second. Then his face went neutral again. "You got your copy?" he asked. I hesitated. Technically, I should have handed it over already. But the receipt was still folded in my apron, warm from my body. "Yeah," I said. "It's in my pocket." "Let me see." I unfolded the paper with fingers that didn't feel like mine. The bottom line was waiting for me, solid as ever. Total due, 0.00. You owe the tag. I handed it to him. He leaned under the time clock light, lips moving as he read. "Store ID, lane, timestamp, manual return, manual note," he muttered. His eyes tracked down to the bottom. Nothing happened. No raised brow, no snort, no "what the hell is this?" His expression never changed. "Flip it over," I said. He humored me, turned it. "Back's blank," he said. "You expecting a coupon?" "You don't see it?" I asked. My voice came out too thin. "See what?" he said. "The extra line," I said. "Under the thank you, it says..." I stopped. Saying it out loud felt like it would make it more real. Lou studied me a second longer than I liked, then handed the strip back. "Long shift," he said. "You're reading ghosts into dot matrix. Go home, Price. I'll flag the override and note that Dana okayed it. Just don't make a habit of bypassing the catalog. The more we manual return, the more corporate thinks we're sloppy." He punched out and walked away, radio crackling. I looked at the receipt again. The line was still there. Same letters, same gray. "You owe the tag." I slid it back into my pocket and clocked out. Leaving the store at night feels like stepping from one aquarium into another. Inside, harsh white light, canned pop remixes, the constant beep of scanners. Outside, sodium orange streetlights, the low roar of the highway, neon shouting tacos and tattoos and checks cashed. Mesa after midnight is half-empty parking lots and blue TV flicker behind apartment curtains. I drove past all of it with one hand on the wheel and the other drifting toward my chest, feeling for the crinkle of paper through my apron. Halfway home, I stopped at a red light and a stupid question slid into my head. What happens if you throw away a debt you haven't paid? I gripped the wheel harder. "It's ink on paper," I said to the empty car. "It's a glitch. It's nothing." At a stop sign near my complex, I almost rolled down the window and let the receipt go. I could see it in my head, a white strip whipping away into the dark, tumbling along the pavement until it stuck to a storm drain or someone else's bumper. My fingers wouldn't move. They just pressed the folded square tighter until the edges dug into my palm. I didn't throw it away. I wish that was the mistake that mattered. Because when I got home, tossed my apron on a chair and shook it out over the table, the receipt that fell wasn't the one from the store. It was a different strip. Same thermal paper, same logo at the top, but the timestamp section was empty. Where the date should have been, there was just a neat row of tiny underscores, like a form waiting to be filled in later. At the bottom, under a perfectly normal thank you message, one sentence had been burned in a darker gray. "You owe the tag. Due upon possession." My apartment felt smaller all at once, like the walls had leaned in. I didn't own that figurine. It was in a locked cage, on company property, in a bin with a salvage tag waiting to be filled out. Whatever this debt was, it belonged to the store. I told myself that, out loud, twice. Somewhere in the building, a pipe knocked, a dull metal thud echoing through drywall. On the table, the new receipt lay perfectly flat, waiting for the date to decide it existed. I didn't really sleep that night. My body went through the motions, TV off, teeth brushed, lights out, but some part of me stayed sitting at the kitchen table, staring at that strip of paper. The new receipt was still there, exactly where it had fallen out of my apron. Same logo at the top, same boilerplate thank you at the bottom. But right where the date and time should have been, there was only a neat row of tiny underscores, like the printer had left a blank to be filled in later. Under that, the line that mattered. "You owe the tag. Due upon possession." I read it so many times the words stopped sounding like words. They became just shapes, and those shapes felt pointed. Like the receipt wasn't describing a transaction anymore, it was accusing me of one. I tried talking myself down. Printers can spit out phantom lines. Maybe someone had fed a test template into the system. Maybe some bored IT guy had snuck a joke into a footer. Maybe I'd grabbed a slip from an old training packet without noticing. None of that explained why the timestamp was missing. Receipts are little fossils of time. That's their whole job. This thing happened at this moment. Without that, it wasn't proof. It was a promise waiting for a date. I got up and paced my tiny living room. The apartment is nothing special. Beige carpet, beige walls, the kind of place you can already picture another tenant living in next year. The sink drips if you don't crank the faucet just right. The fridge hums louder when the AC kicks on. I know every sound it makes. That night, every noise felt sharpened. The fridge hum sounded higher, like a cheap speaker. The tick of the stove clock, something I only notice when I'm waiting for coffee, suddenly sounded like someone tapping a fingernail on glass. I told myself it was just closing shift static in my head. 8 hours under fluorescent lights and scanner beeps will make any quiet room feel wrong. My eyes kept drifting back to the table. The receipt didn't curl, didn't yellow, didn't do the little wiggle cheap paper does when air moves. It just lay there, flat and sure of itself. I went to the drawer where I keep old bills and warranty printouts and grabbed a handful. Electric, water, one from the dentist I still hadn't called back. I lined them up next to the strip. Every single one had a date and time. Looking at them all in a row, the blank line on the haunted slip bothered me more than the ominous sentence. The universe could throw weird phrasing at a receipt, but leaving out the one thing a receipt is for, that felt intentional. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. The photo looked ordinary. Scratched up table, scattered papers, my hand in the corner. When I zoomed in, the text was crisp. The timestamp area in the picture wasn't underscores. It was a solid white bar, like nothing had ever been printed there. The line at the bottom was clear. You owe the tag. Due upon possession. My thumb hovered over the messaging icon. I have a group chat with a couple of old friends, memes, mechanic recommendations, the usual. I imagined dropping that photo in there at midnight. Hey, tell me this doesn't look cursed. For a second, the idea of someone else laughing at it felt like oxygen. Then another thought crept in. If it really is wrong, sending it out just gives it more places to live. I backed out without attaching it. The photo stayed in my gallery, a little frozen square of evidence I wasn't ready to share. I folded the receipt in half, then in half again. The paper creased cleanly, no cracking, no resistance. The drawer under my microwave sticks halfway every time. I had to bump it with my hip to get it open. I shoved the folded square under a stack of takeout menus and forced the drawer shut. Out of sight. Not out of mind. When sleep finally came, it didn't feel like rest. It felt like somebody dimmed the lights but left the machine running. I woke up the first time because I swore I heard my door chime. Not a knock, the little digital trill from the camera over my porch. I sat up so fast my back twinged, grabbed my phone. No notification. The app's event history showed the last motion as earlier that night. Front sidewalk, motion detected. Nothing about now. For a heartbeat, the log line seemed to shift. Instead of motion detected, I could have sworn it said stray cat. My subscription doesn't include object detection. It's not supposed to call anything a cat or a person, just motion. I blinked and the phrase was back to normal. Motion detected. My heart was the only thing racing. Stop reading ghosts into every field, I muttered, echoing Lou without meaning to. I set the phone back down and tried to lie still. The dark felt thicker than it should. The second time I woke up, it was because something cold brushed my thigh. I jolted, shoving my hand under the covers. No phone, no keys, nothing but fabric and warm skin. The chill lingered in a band across my leg, like someone had pressed a metal ruler there and slowly pulled it away. I lay awake for a long time after that, staring at the faint glow around the bedroom door from the kitchen light. Every creak in the building sounded like someone testing how much weight the walls could take. At some point, exhaustion tackled me again. What sleep I got after that came in ragged scraps, dreams of receipts fluttering like moths, of red tags swinging from invisible necks, of scanners beeping in time with my pulse. When my alarm finally went off, it felt like I'd never fully dropped. Morning light made everything look less haunted. Dust on the TV, socks half under the couch, a glass sweating on the counter. Just my normal mess. My brain rushed to file everything back under ordinary. Glitchy mind, long shift, too much caffeine. Nothing's wrong. I almost didn't check the drawer. Almost. The moment my hand closed on the handle, I knew something was off. The drawer didn't stick. It slid open smooth, like someone had taken sandpaper to the swollen wood while I slept. Inside, the takeout menus weren't where I'd left them. They'd been shifted to the side in a neat stack. Right in the center, where the menus had been, lay the folded receipt. Same weight, same feel. I didn't need to open it to know, but I did. The timestamp line was no longer waiting. In tiny, perfect letters, it now said, date of possession, January 17th, 23:59. That was last night. Right on the minute between pulling into the lot and walking up to my door. Underneath, the due upon possession line had changed too. You owe the tag. Balance transferred. I sat down so fast the chair squeaked. Balance transferred. Transferred from where? From the store? From that guy in the ball cap? From some invisible ledger I'd never agreed to be on? The figurine was still locked in the cage as far as I knew. It was sitting on a shelf, tagged as salvage, a problem scheduled for the shrink vendor. Whatever this line said, it acted like the debt had moved. To me. I thought of the override, of my ID typed into the POS, of my fingers on the figurine's glaze and the cold bite across my skin. Whatever system this thing belonged to, it had decided that was enough. I looked at my index finger. The faint white line where the tag had almost cut me was still there. Deeper now. No blood. Just that tight, shiny groove your skin gets when it's deciding whether to split. I stared at the drawer for another long moment. Then I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and went back to the store early. If my balance had really transferred, I wanted to see whether the thing that had started it all was still sitting behind that padlock. Or if it had decided inventory wasn't the only thing it could move around. I got to the store before sunrise. The sky still that bruised blue-gray color it turns right before the light commits. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a couple employee cars and a box truck idling near receiving. The automatic doors hadn't switched to full open yet, so I had to slip in through the side entrance with my badge and the kind of expression that says, "I know I'm early, don't ask." I kept telling myself I was here to check the cage. That was all. Verify the figurine was still where it should be, prove the receipt was lying, and maybe scrape together enough sleep-starved dignity to laugh at myself later. Then I pushed my sleeve up to wash my hands in the break room sink. There was a red clearance tag wrapped around the inside of my wrist. It sat against my skin like it had always belonged there. Not tied on, not taped, just there, looped neatly around the pale underside of my wrist like a bracelet somebody had fastened while I slept. The cardboard was the same too dark red I'd seen on the figurine, and the little punched hole sat near the vein like it had been measured. On the visible face, in black block letters, was one word: ode. For a second, my brain refused to label it as real. I think that's the kindest thing the mind does for you when something impossible shows up. It gives you a beat, a little pause where maybe this is makeup, maybe this is a prank, maybe you're still half dreaming. My first instinct wasn't rational, it was purely animal. Get it off. I hooked a fingernail under the edge and yanked. The tag peeled away too easily. No resistance, no sting, no adhesive. I opened my hand to drop it in the sink. The tag didn't fall. It was still in my palm. Not stuck there, just resting against the center of my hand as if gravity had been given special instructions. I jerked my hand once, hard. It didn't move. Again, nothing. By the third shake, I was breathing like I'd run up the stockroom stairs. The tag clung like gravity had stopped applying to it and started applying to me. I made a noise that might have been a laugh if it hadn't died in my throat. "Okay," I whispered. "No, we're not doing this." I pressed the heel of my other hand over it, as if covering it would somehow cancel it out. That was how Lou found me. "Price." I nearly jumped out of my skin. Lou was in the break room doorway with his coffee and that permanently disappointed face he wears like a second badge. "You're here early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. My right hand stayed clenched at my side so hard my knuckles hurt. He glanced toward the back. "Good. Then maybe you can explain why the salvage cage wasn't fully secured." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Morning walkthrough. Door was shut, lock was hanging, but it wasn't spun closed." He took a sip of coffee. "And your creepy little clearance art project is gone." I stared at him. The figurine was missing. The receipt at home had said balance transferred. The tag was on my wrist. And now Lou, with his clipboard brain and tired little LP frown, was telling me the object itself had vanished from behind the cage. I curled my fingers tighter around my palm. "Maybe somebody moved it," I said. Lou snorted. "Yeah, maybe the porcelain goblin clocked out and went on break." Despite everything, that almost made me laugh. Almost. He held out his free hand. "Come on, show me." "Show you what?" "The hand." He nodded toward the fist I clearly wasn't using naturally. "You look like you're hiding a razor blade." "It's nothing." "You hurt it?" "Mostly," I said, before my brain caught up. That got his attention. "Mostly?" I opened my hand before I could think of a better lie. The tag lay there, red against my skin. Lou frowned. "That's it?" I looked down. The word had changed. No more ode. Just a perfectly normal-looking barcode and a string of numbers in small black print, like any other clearance tag in the building. "It was cutting me," I said weakly. Lou leaned in, squinting. "Looks like cardboard." "It was on my wrist." He looked at my wrist, then back at the tag in my hand. "On your wrist?" "Yeah." He waited. "So?" I said. "So nothing," he said. "You found a tag. Congratulations. We sell those by the million." He walked me back to the cage. The padlock was hanging exactly the way he'd said, through the latch but not turned. The kind of half-secured mistake somebody makes when they're distracted or interrupted. Inside, one lower shelf sat empty except for the gray tote. No figurine, no twine, no tissue paper. just a faint ring of dust where something had been resting. Lou crouched, checked the bin, checked the floor, then scribbled a note on his clipboard. "Probably got tossed with defective ceramics," he muttered. "Or somebody decided to prank receiving." "It didn't just walk off," I said. He gave me a long look. "You sure you want to phrase it like that?" I shut up. By opening, the store had fully woken up. Lights blazing, carts rattling, Muzak trying to sound cheerful about things nobody's cheerful about at 8 in the morning. Dana saw me near the front end and waved 2 fingers in that manager way that means, "I am about to give you more work disguised as trust." "Jordan, can you cover seasonal until noon?" she called. Marlene texted out. "Sure," I said automatically. The tag had somehow worked its way back against the inside of my wrist, tucked under my watch band like it had burrowed there. Every time a nearby scanner chirped, the cardboard seemed to tighten almost imperceptibly, a tiny pulse against my skin. By the 3rd beep, I knew I wasn't imagining the timing. Seasonal in January is mostly clearance Valentines and sad leftover winter decor. Keisha found me zoning out beside a cardboard display of discount fleece throws. "You look like warmed over death," she said. "You good?" "No," I said, honest before I could stop myself. Then, did you ever see that figurine after last night? The kneeling nightmare? No. Why? I glanced around. No customers close enough to hear. "Can you look at something?" She grinned. "If this is a rash, I'm billing you." I slid the watch band back and showed her the tag. Keisha leaned in. "A clearance tag? Read it." She took my wrist, turned it toward the fluorescent light, then plucked the tag free with 2 fingers. My whole arm went cold. "What am I reading?" she asked. "Barcode, numbers. Why?" "You don't see anything else?" she frowned. "Should I?" "You really don't feel that?" "Feel what?" She pressed the cardboard lightly between finger and thumb, then shrugged. "It's paper, Jordan." The moment she let go, the tag snapped back into place against my skin. Not fluttered, not slipped. Snapped. Like a stretched rubber band released at point-blank range, except silent and cold. I jerked so hard I knocked 2 plush gnomes off the shelf behind me. Keisha stared. "Okay, what the hell was that?" "You saw that?" "I saw you flinch." "No, the tag. It moved because you moved," she said, but her voice had gone a little thinner. "You need coffee, or sleep, or maybe a week off in a padded room." She tried to laugh. It didn't fully land. I didn't laugh at all. At 10:15, I took the tag off again in the single-stall restroom and held my hand over the trash can. I opened my fingers. Nothing fell. My palm was empty. I looked down at my wrist. The tag was there, flush against the skin, like it had never moved. That was the moment I stopped calling it a glitch, even privately. Glitches are errors, bugs, misfires. This had rules. Rules meant records. Records meant systems. Systems meant Lou. I found him in his office, really just a converted supply closet with a desk, 2 monitors, and enough camera feeds to make the whole store look cheap and guilty. He looked annoyed before I even spoke. "If this is about your mystery statue, I already filed the variance." "Show me." He sighed with the full-body resignation of a man who'd once dreamed bigger than loss prevention. Then he clicked into the inventory system. The figurine was there, or rather the line item for it was. Sell. Salvaged, processed, removed from inventory. Time stamped at 11:58 p.m. last night. Status final. No active location, Lou said. See? It's gone. Somebody processed it out. But who? He scrolled. There was no employee ID attached, just system confirmation. My skin went cold again. As far as the system was concerned, the object had left our world. And yet every time a scanner beeped out on the floor, the tag under my watch band answered with that tiny pulse. I walked out of his office feeling like the store had gotten half an inch smaller around me. Dana called something about zone recovery. A child cried near Home Goods. Overhead, the speakers crackled into another cheerful ad for rewards sign-ups. All of it sounded normal. That was the worst part. Normal enough to make you doubt your own skin. I spent the rest of the shift trying not to touch the tag, trying not to count the scanner pulses, trying not to imagine some invisible screen somewhere with my name highlighted. When I got home that night, I locked the door, set my keys on the counter, and looked at the pale line on my finger, the red edge peeking from under my watch band. I promised myself I would never override anything again. Not for $5, not for $50, not for anyone. It felt like a vow made too late. Because somewhere beneath all the ordinary noise, beneath the scanners, the receipts, the inventory logs, the bland corporate language, I could already feel it. Account active. If you've ever been in a store when every barcode scanner beeps at the same time, you know the sound. It's not loud, not like a fire alarm. It's tiny. A dozen little electronic chirps, usually staggered so they blur into the background. One here, one there, a constant pulse of commerce. That afternoon, they lined up. Every scanner on the front end chirped in the same instant. One sharp, layered beep, then silence. Most customers didn't even flinch. Noise is just part of the aquarium they shop in. But every cashier I could see paused mid-scan, hands hovering, heads tilted like the ceiling had just cleared its throat. The tag against my wrist, still tucked under my watch band like a secret hospital bracelet, throbbed. It didn't move. It didn't glow. I just felt a single synced pulse in my skin, exactly matching that chorus of beeps. When the sound cut off, the sensation went with it, leaving a faint echo up my forearm. "Did you feel that?" I asked the woman in front of me before my brain could stop my mouth. "Feel what?" she said, sliding her card into the reader. "The surge," I said. "Sometimes when the system hiccups, the power..." The lights above us hummed steadily. The terminal waited for her PIN. A toddler in the next lane whined for candy. Everything looked boringly functional. She glanced around. "Seems fine to me," she said. "Yeah," I muttered. "Just me then." I handed her the receipt, careful not to let it brush my bare fingers. "Have a good night." She walked away, the flimsy strip pinched between two fingers. From my angle, I couldn't see the bottom line. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. Because by then, the tag had stopped needing paper to talk to me. They moved me off register after lunch. Dana likes to rotate people so nobody eats a customer on camera. That day, my punishment/reward was projects, which is corporate for whatever needs doing that doesn't have a job title. "Markdown sweeps," she said, handing me the bulky handheld scanner. "Take the gun, check end caps, fix any wrong tags. Secret shoppers in the district this week. Don't make me write a corrective plan." The markdown gun is a chunky thing with a screen and trigger. You point it at a barcode, squeeze, and the device tells you if the shelf tag and the system agree or if somebody misstickered it. When it works, it's a time saver. When it doesn't, it makes you want to scan your own forehead. I slung the strap over my shoulder, grabbed a roll of yellow new price stickers, and headed to Home Decor. The aisle was clogged with half-unpacked boxes. A cart of glassware blocked one end. The air smelled like cardboard dust and fake vanilla. I started with metal lanterns. Scan, beep, green OK on the little screen. Price correct, with a smiley icon someone in corporate thought was encouraging. The tag on my wrist gave a tiny answering twitch and went still. Next, ceramic owls with chipped ears. Several scanned as wrong. System said one price, sticker said another. The screen told me, in its polite little font, to update them. I slapped fresh stickers on their faces, trying not to chip them worse. After the third owl, the scanner's screen glitched. For a fraction of a second, instead of the usual OK or adjust, it flashed a different message. Balance, 1 item owed. Assigned, J. Price. By the time I registered the words, they were gone. The screen now showed, update price to $4.97. I squeezed my eyes shut, opened them again. The display stayed harmless. Cute, I muttered. Real cute. I kept going, mostly because the alternative was standing in an aisle having a breakdown in front of 50 porcelain birds. The next thing I scanned was a framed print. Generic, inspirational landscape, pastel sky, white script over it. Live, laugh, love. I pointed the gun at the barcode on the back and pulled the trigger. The scanner stayed silent. My wrist didn't. The tag pulsed, sharp enough to make my fingers clench. The screen stayed blank for a heartbeat, then filled with text that had no business being there. Item, home accent, unknown. Status, removed from inventory. Balance, 1 item owed. Assigned, J. Price. Collection, pending. I took a step back, bumping a stack of throw blankets. By the time my brain caught up, the words had vanished. The gun now showed a friendly error. No item found. Please rescan or enter manually. My reflection in the dark plastic looked wrong. Pale, eyes too wide, like someone had printed my face slightly off-center. You okay, dude? Keisha's voice jolted me. She stood at the end of the aisle with a cart full of discounted holiday junk. Glittery ornaments, leftover Santa mugs, a red plastic reindeer missing one antler. You breaking up with the gun? She asked. Because if we're quitting our jobs dramatically, I want to coordinate. I think it's broken, I said. Keeps glitching. She held out her hand. Let me see. I passed her the scanner. She aimed at a Valentine's mug with a crooked heart and pulled the trigger. Beep. The screen showed a neat little price, $2.99. Okay. No ghosts, just robbery, she said. Did it tell you you're fired yet? Because if it starts doing HR's job too, I'm out. It put my name on something, I said. In the system. Balance owed. She snorted. That's just payroll. I'm serious, I said. It flashed, assigned J. Price. Then congrats, she said. You're employee of the haunt. Either that or you're slam reading. We see our names plastered everywhere in here. Schedules, write-ups, leaderboard. Brains are lazy. They fill blanks with familiar words. This wasn't a blank, I said. But the moment had already slid past her. Look, if the gun's possessed, let it help with markdowns, she said, shoving the scanner back into my hands. At least one of us will finally know what anything actually costs. She pushed her cart away, humming like the aisle wasn't quietly trying to bill me. I watched her go, the scanner suddenly heavy. Then I did what everyone in retail does when the world tilts sideways. I kept working. On my next break, I locked myself in the far stall in the bathroom. I pulled back my sleeve. The tag lay against my skin, perfectly flat. No twine, no adhesive, just cardboard where cardboard had no business being. The barcode had changed again. It wasn't numbers anymore. JPRC 001. On the back, in tiny type that hadn't been there before, was a single line. Do not remove until balance is 0. The fluorescent light above the stall hummed, then flickered like it agreed. I wanted to rip the tag in half, tear it into confetti, flush it, be done. But the last time I'd tried to let go, it hadn't fallen. And some part of me, stupid, superstitious, whispered that if it told me not to remove it, forcing the issue might be like yanking a do not pull lever just to see what happens. Fine, I said to the graffiti on the door. You want to act like a debt? Let's see what you think counts as payment. I slid the tag back under my watch band, face against my skin. New rule, I decided. No more manual overrides. No more breaking policy because someone looks tired. If this thing had latched onto the exact moment I bent the rules, maybe rules were the only fence I had left. The universe tested that decision before my lunch break. A woman came to the service desk with a cart full of candles. Each one had at least 2 clearance stickers layered on it. Some had 3. It was the kind of cart only professional couponers and resellers build. I bought these yesterday, she said. The shelf said $2. My receipt says $4. That's false advertising. I want the difference back. Do you have your receipt? I asked, like I wasn't already looking right at it in her hand. She slapped it down. The paper fanned open. The log of her purchase ran down the center. Line after line of SCNT, DCND, LCL, each with its own discount code. From the top down, it looked fine. From the bottom up, it didn't. Right under her total, in tiny print that didn't match the rest, a fresh sentence had appeared for me. Balance adjustment available. Apply to J. Price. I blinked once. The text stayed. It rang wrong, she insisted. Your signs are misleading. You've got to honor the posted price, right? The sensible answer would have been, let me get a manager. Let Dana be the bad guy. Let Lou grumble. Let someone with a higher pay grade argue about signage. The tag under my watch band warmed, like an eye opening. I imagined hitting override just once, sliding my ID into the void, letting the system shuffle whatever balance this thing was tracking onto a line item no customer would ever see. $70 here, $37 there. Enough adjustments and my own overdraft fees wouldn't haunt my inbox. Mom wouldn't have to ask carefully worded questions about rent and prescriptions. Instead, I heard myself say, I can honor the lowest posted price if we can confirm it. But I can't override without checking the shelf. Her jaw tightened. So you're calling me a liar? I'm saying I need proof, I said, fingers digging into the edge of the counter so I wouldn't press the tag. She huffed. Forget it. It's always something with you people. She snatched the receipt and stormed off, cart rattling. When I glanced down at the laminate where it had been, for a second I saw letters faintly impressed in the surface. Ode. I blinked. The impression vanished. The phantom tag on my skin cooled. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I felt like I'd just told a very patient collections agent no, and that the conversation was far from over. The first real penalty hit that evening. Not at work. Not in the system I could see. In my phone. I just clocked out and was crossing the parking lot when my door camera pinged. "Motion at your front door," the banner said, with that little preview thumbnail that usually shows my welcome mat. I opened it, already bracing for another box. The still image that filled the screen wasn't my door. It was the break room. Same table, same sad vending machine, same corkboard with curling flyers. The view was from the far corner, where there is no camera. The app banner still cheerfully claimed this was front door. The timestamp matched the current time down to the minute, and in the middle of the frame, sitting at the table with their hands folded like they were waiting on a meeting, was me. My uniform, my badge, my posture. From the side, but unmistakable. Between my hands, on the table, sat the figurine. In the image, its blank face was turned toward a spot just past the camera. If you pretended there was a camera in that corner, it was looking right at it. My real hands shook around the phone. I wasn't in the break room. I was in the parking lot, watching my own phone screen. I could see the reflection of my face ghosted over the frozen picture of my double. As I stared, the me in the feed moved. It, lifted the figurine, turned it slowly like checking for chips under the glaze. A strip of paper slipped out from beneath it and fluttered onto the table. The image glitched. For a split second, the colors smeared, the timestamp warped into nonsense characters. Then the view snapped back to my actual front door, matte, concrete, nothing else. The status text under the video changed itself. Instead of the usual "clip saved," it now said, "clip saved, tagged as system error." My throat tightened. System error. I hovered over the save icon, over the share button. Who exactly was I going to send this to? "Hey, check out how my haunted return is doing its own CCTV edits now." I hit delete. The app asked if I was sure. "Deleted clips cannot be recovered," it warned. "If only," I said, and confirmed. The clip vanished. The weight in my chest didn't, because that's how this thing worked. Not with jump scares or doors slamming, just quiet adjustments. A beep here, a line of text there, a reversed late fee, a phantom deposit, a camera feed that shouldn't exist. Balancing a ledger I'd never agreed to be on, and reminding me with every tiny correction that as far as it was concerned, I was still an item waiting to be rung up. I didn't realize I was dealing with a debt collector until it started paying me. Not with phone calls, not with letters in red ink, with corrections. It answered me in money. The first benefit showed up the morning after that break room clip. I was halfway through making coffee when my phone buzzed on the counter. For a second, I thought it was another door alert and my stomach clenched. It wasn't. It was my banking app. A banner slid down. "Deposit received." Underneath, the little preview line said, "Plus $37.12, retail holdings adjustment." I unlocked the phone with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy. The transaction list had a new line. Same neat font the app uses for everything. Date, time, amount. The description read, "Overcharge correction, prior purchases." I hadn't filed any complaint. I hadn't emailed corporate. I hadn't talked to anyone at the store about being overcharged. I barely bought anything besides marked down groceries and detergent, and half the time I used my discount on that. $37.12 isn't life-changing, but it wasn't random either. It was almost exactly what I'd spent the week before on a grocery run that had hit harder than I'd expected. For a moment, I let myself feel relief. Rent hovering over my head, my mom hinting around prescription costs, Any green number in that app felt like oxygen. Then I glanced at the kitchen table. The receipt was there. I hadn't left it there. I'd folded it and put it back in the drawer after the break room clip. I remembered pushing the drawer shut until it stuck. Now the drawer hung open an inch. The receipt lay flat in the center of the table like I'd set it there on purpose. The top still showed the blank timestamp, just that line of underscores. But the area where the date should be had darkened, thermal paper grayed in a perfect rectangle. The words burned in now read, "Date of possession, January 17th, confirmed. Balance, 1 item." Underneath, new text had appeared in the same matter-of-fact tone as a billing notice. Attempted payment, declined. Reason, policy adhered. I knew exactly what it was talking about. The woman with the candles, the cart full of wrong prices. The moment I decided not to hit override. This thing had watched me say no and treated it like a declined charge. At the bottom, one more line had been added, darker than the rest. New due, transfer of possession, location, pending. I stared until my eyes stung. Location pending sounded like a package tracking page from hell. I glanced back at my phone. The deposit sat there, green and smug. "I didn't ask for that," I said out loud. "I didn't ask you for anything." The kitchen didn't answer. The fridge hummed. Upstairs, someone flushed a toilet. The receipt did answer. The bottom strip, the place where the paper had already taken so much heat, warmed again. Letters ghosted up from white to gray, like someone passing an invisible flame under it. You owe the tag. The tag owes you back. I don't know why that scared me more than every other line. Maybe because it felt fair. Like a system explaining to you that this actually is a two-way street. That it's not just going to take, it'll give too. It'll make sure the relationship feels reciprocal, at least at first. I thought about my mom. She'd left a voicemail the night before while I was closing, asking how I was, telling me about a TV show she'd started, working up to the part where she mentioned the new medication the doctor wanted her on. She'd tried to say it casually, like she was only passing on information, not quietly begging me to say, "Don't worry, I've got it." $37 wasn't going to cover that, but it was enough to make me wonder. "Is that you?" I asked the receipt. Nothing moved. My door chime rang. Not my phone, not the oven timer, the door camera. The little digital trill came from the phone on my counter a beat later, the app banner blooming. Motion detected at your front door. The last time that alert had mattered, there'd been a box. The tag under my watch band tightened, just enough for my skin to notice. I thumbed the notification open. The app showed the usual still frame from the camera. My door, my mat, a slice of concrete. This time, the image was tighter than usual, like someone had dragged the crop box in. No parking lot, no street. Just the welcome mat and the lower part of my door. On the mat sat a cardboard box. Medium-sized, plain brown, no branding. No shipping label in the window of the frame. The only detail that made my stomach drop was the tape. The seams were sealed with clear tape printed over and over with my store's name in blue. For a second, the image hiccuped. The timestamp smeared, then snapped back. Under the picture, the status line flickered. Instead of motion detected, for half a heartbeat it read, "Item owed, delivered." I blinked, and it was back to the friendly message about motion. The tag at my wrist pulsed once, a short, satisfied thud. Of course, I whispered. Every rational part of me screamed, "Don't open the door. At least not alone. Call someone. Wait. Pretend you're not home. Do literally anything besides answer a box hand-delivered by a ghost accounting system." But it was my doorstep. If some normal delivery service had screwed up, the package might belong to a neighbor. If it sat there too long, the kids who ran up and down the hallway might trip over it. Or someone might just decide that boxes on doormats were finders keepers. Also, and I hated myself for this, I recognized the tape. We go through rolls of that stuff in the back room. I'd sealed a crate with it last week, hands sticky with glue, Lou watching me note each box on his clipboard. This wasn't some random Amazon package, this was ours. I picked up my keys, like they were going to help against cardboard, and opened the door. The air outside smelled like warm concrete and somebody grilling in another building. A car drove past the lot, bass rattling faintly. My door cam's little lens stared back at me from above the frame. The box sat dead center on my mat, just like in the still frame. No label, no marker, just brown surface and looping blue logos on the tape. "Hello?" I called down the hallway, because apparently that's my reflex now. "Anyone missing a delivery?" No answer. No retreating footsteps. No doors cracking open. Up close, I could see a faint stamp on one side of the box. Only part of it had taken. Salvage, smeared, and the first few digits of our store ID. The cardboard felt cool when I touched it. The tape crackled under my fingers with the exact sound I hear all day at work. There was no delivered email in my inbox. No text from any carrier. The app showed only the one door alert. No van, no driver, no human chain at all. It really did look like the box had just appeared. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, weight-centered, like there was one solid object inside. No rattling, no shifting. Ceramic, my brain said. I carried it into the kitchen and set it on the table. The receipt, which I could have sworn I'd left on the other side of the table, was now lying in the exact center. The box landed on top of it with a soft, papery sigh. For a second, I thought about leaving it sealed, putting it straight into the trunk of my car and driving until I ran out of highway, then offloading it into one of those charity drop boxes that dot parking lots. But that's the problem with working returns. You know the truth nobody likes. Whatever you don't open now, someone else opens later. If I pawned this off, it wouldn't make the debt disappear. It would just hand the bill to somebody who hadn't made the original mistake. If this was my balance, I didn't get to pretend it wasn't. I grabbed a butter knife and slid it under the tape. The adhesive gave with a sound that hit the back of my teeth. Strip by strip, the lid came free. The smell that drifted out wasn't rot or chemicals. It smelled like dust, old perfume, and the inside of a thrift store. Air that had sat with too many forgotten objects for too long. I peeled back the flaps. The figurine knelt in the middle of the box. No padding. No tissue paper this time, just ceramic in a cardboard coffin, perfectly centered, like the box had grown around it. Same blank face, same hunched shoulders, same pale glaze that always looks 1 degree too close to skin. The ring around its neck was still there, a clean groove where the clearance tag's twine had bitten into the glaze, but the tag itself was gone. My wrist went cold. I yanked my sleeve back. The strip of skin under my watch band was bare. No cardboard. No mark except a faint pale circle, like a tan line where a bracelet had been. The receipt squirmed under the corner of the box, paper wriggling like something alive. I grabbed it and slid it out. The top had updated. The blank date section now said the thing I already knew. Transfer of possession, complete. Location, primary residence. Balance, 1 item, held. I looked back at the figurine. It hadn't moved, but its head was angled just slightly more toward me than it had been at the store. The tiny change made my scalp prickle. "All right," I said hoarsely. "You're here. You wanted to be here. What now?" The receipt warmed in my hand. Another line appeared at the bottom, this one so matter-of-fact it could have been on any store policy sheet. Return window closed. Use policy to redeem benefits. I stared from the words to the figurine and back. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about me owing something. It had followed me home. It had moved into my life like any other store product, complete with rules and fine print. And now it was telling me I could earn things back if I played by its policies. If a cursed object tells you to use policy, you're supposed to laugh it off. You're supposed to roll your eyes, call it a cute coincidence, maybe make a joke about corporate-branded hauntings, and then go back to doom scrolling. I tried. Didn't take. For a while, I just sat at the table with the figurine in front of me and the receipt in my hand, trying to interpret use policy to redeem benefits in any way that didn't sound insane, even in my own head. Policy, in my world, isn't abstract. It's signs on doors, bullet points in training slides, dense paragraphs in the handbook. Return windows, price matching rules, associate discretion. The stuff Dana quotes when she doesn't want to say, "because I said so." If this thing wanted me to use policy, it was either telling me to cling to the rules so hard I shook it off, or it was telling me to treat the rules like some kind of vending machine. Press the right combination, get something back. The figurine knelt in the middle of the open box, blank face angled toward me. The groove around its neck where the tag had been looked too clean, like it was waiting for something to hang there again. "You're a clearance item," I said. "You don't get to make demands." It didn't move. It didn't crackle. It just existed, patient and ugly and absolutely sure it belonged here now. I got up, poured myself a glass of water, drank it all, and came back with one stupid idea. If this had somehow turned into a ledger, I needed a log. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started a new entry. At the top, I typed, "Deals I didn't ask for." Just seeing it written out made my skin crawl. But I kept going. Under that, I added, "Bank deposit, $37.12. Retail holdings adjustment. Time matches receipt change. Box delivered with store salvage tape. Figurine inside. Tag gone from wrist. Receipt now says, transfer of possession, complete." I hesitated, then hit save. On the table, the receipt warmed between my fingers. A new line faded in at the very bottom, the letters coming up from white to gray. Logging activity, approved. Account, active. Fantastic, I muttered. My haunting likes that I'm journaling. The figurine didn't react. The oven clock ticked over 1 minute. The apartment hummed like nothing weird was happening. I left the box open on the table and went to bed. I didn't move the figurine. It moved itself. I woke up to the sound of something sliding across wood. Not loud, just a slow, dry hiss, like paper dragged over a tabletop. For a second, I thought I was dreaming about receipts. Then the bed frame gave a soft, unmistakable bump, like someone had tapped it from the foot. My eyes snapped open. The bedroom was all vague shapes and streetlight bleed. The doorway to the hall was a darker rectangle, edges glowing faintly with kitchen light I hadn't turned off all the way. The clock on my nightstand said 3:07 a.m. "Hello?" I whispered, because apparently I like talking to problems before I see them. Silence. Then another tiny scrape, this time directly in front of the bed. I grabbed my phone, thumb shaking on the screen. The flashlight cut a hard cone through the dark. The figurine sat on the floor at the foot of the bed, dead center, perfectly aligned. Same kneeling pose, same blank face. Only now it was here, where there was no box, no tape, no store. I hadn't brought it in. I would have remembered carrying that thing into my bedroom. For a second, I actually waited for it to wobble, to tip, to do anything that would make this feel like a normal jump scare instead of a decision. It didn't move. Next to it, leaning against the bed leg like a nameplate, was the receipt. As I watched, the top edge curled back a little, like it was nodding at me. The newest lines were already waiting. New activity available. Apply policy. Override. The figurine's head seemed to tilt just a fraction more, as if it understood that word. Override. The same word that had gotten me into this in the first place. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, flashlight beams shaking across the carpet. "If you can move," I heard myself say, "you can move back to the kitchen." The figurine stayed exactly where it was. The only thing that responded was the receipt. More heat crept across the bottom, darkening the paper. Letters formed, not neat bullet points, just sentence after sentence trying to sound like a system message. Override pending. Select target. 2 little empty boxes appeared under the words, outlined in darker gray like checkboxes on a web form. One was labeled self, the other, other. My mouth went dry. The self box might as well have been labeled, take it out of you. The other box was worse. I hated how fast my brain populated that blank. Names slid into it far too easily. Dana with her metrics charts. Lou with his clipboard. That woman with the candle receipt. Carver, the reseller. Random customers who'd made my life hell for 20 minutes at a time. If I let myself keep going, I'd have a whole list. That was the worst part. How human it felt to have those thoughts. To see a box labeled other and immediately think, who deserves this more than me? The figurine's empty face seemed to be listening. "You don't get to make me choose," I said, throat tight. The receipt disagreed. Another line peeled itself onto the paper. Inaction is a selection. Default. Self. My heart beat once, hard enough to make my vision shimmer. "So those are my options?" I said. "Throw someone else under the bus or let you dig into me deeper?" No answer. Just the quiet weight of that little ceramic kneeling thing and the paper between us. I sat there for a long moment, phone light starting to dim, the smell of dust and sleep-heavy air filling my nose. Here's what nobody tells you about being broke and scared at the same time. Temptation doesn't show up as a suitcase full of cash. It shows up as a way to make the next step a tiny bit less awful. I pictured my rent ledger, my mom's prescriptions, the late fee that had magically gone away, the deposit that had just appeared. All the little benefits this thing had already floated my way. What would other unlock? More corrections? Bigger ones? Safer nights? At what price? My thumb hovered over the other box. Then I thought about that guy in the ball cap, the way he'd backed away from the figurine and said, "I just don't want it in the house." He'd tried to hand this thing off, and the system had followed the override instead. It had followed me. I looked at the figurine, waiting at my feet like a patient, awful dog. "I'm not trading anyone else," I said. My voice shook, but I said it anyway. Not for money, not for hours, not for better transactions. If you're attached to me, you stay attached to me. That's the rule. I picked up the receipt. The paper was hot, like it had just come out of a printer. My thumb pressed down on the little box labeled Self. The square filled in, ink black spreading out from the center. The other option faded, the letters draining away until it was just blank space again. The figurine shuddered. I didn't see movement. I felt it, like touching an electric fence through fabric. A jolt ran up through my fingers, into my wrist, across my ribs and into my jaw. Every filling in my teeth hummed for a heartbeat. My vision went silver at the edges. When it cleared, the receipt had updated itself. The lines now read, "Override confirmed. Target, Self. Terms, accepted." Under that, 2 more phrases slid in, quiet as dust. Benefits, unlocked. Penalties, accruing. The paper cooled. The figurine stayed where it was, kneeling at the foot of my bed. It hadn't inched closer. It hadn't lunged. It just existed there, like a little claim on my floor. I lay back slowly, receipt still in my hand, and stared at the ceiling until the light from the window went from black to gray. Somewhere between 3:07 a.m. and my alarm, a thought settled into place with the weight of a stamped form. I hadn't just been haunted by a glitch. I'd signed something. No ink, no signature, just a little check mark in a box on a piece of paper that shouldn't be able to ask questions. And now, whatever counted as policy in this thing's universe had finally been given permission to start keeping score. The haunting didn't kick my door in. It did something worse. It started helping. After the box, after the figurine moved itself into my bedroom and I put a check mark in the Self box, I half expected the next thing to be loud. A scream, a shadow, a full-on exorcist moment. Instead, I got a favor. I was heading down the stairs the next morning, eyes sandy from what barely counted as sleep, when my building manager appeared on the landing with a stack of envelopes. He's one of those guys who always looks slightly inconvenienced by existing. "Jordan," he said. "Good, I was gonna slide this under your door." My stomach tightened. Rent. Late fee. Pick one. "Look," I started, already rehearsing a begging speech. "I get paid this week, I can—" He cut me off with a huff. "Relax, not that. System did something stupid last night." He flipped through the stack, pulled out a window envelope with my name showing through. "Payment portal had a hiccup or whatever. A bunch of late fees got reversed. It spat out notice letters this morning. You're paid up through this month." He shifted his grip on the envelopes. "Don't ask me how. Computers decided you don't owe as much as I thought you did." And just like that, he was moving past me, muttering about damn software and back-end clowns. I stood there on the stairs with the envelope in my hand. I didn't need to open it. I already knew it would say something about an adjustment, an apology, some language about correcting your account. But I did anyway. Inside, the letter was pure landlord boilerplate until the last line. Right above the signature, in a font that didn't quite match the rest, was "Balance adjusted by external policy." No explanation, no footnote, just those 4 words aimed at me. My skin prickled under the watch band I wasn't wearing anymore. "Is that you?" I asked the empty stairwell. No answer. Just the distant noise of someone's TV through drywall. I folded the letter and tucked it into my bag beside my lunch and my name tag. Rent reprieve, bank correction, box delivery. The benefits were piling up. I hadn't paid anything but attention. Yet. The store looked the same that afternoon, but it didn't feel the same. The lights felt half a notch too bright. The aisles felt narrower. Every beep from the front end sounded like someone tapping a glass and waiting for quiet. Dana caught me at the schedule board. "Price," she said, tapping a sheet. "Couple of things. 1, that override from a few nights ago? Corporate reviewed it. Lou forwarded your note. They liked how you worded it." She smirked. "Apparently your judgment call is textbook. I should get you to train the newbies on when to bend a rule without getting me yelled at." My stomach did a slow sink. "Seriously?" I said. "He hates overrides." "Not this one, apparently," she shrugged. 2, I picked up an extra shift and thought of you before everyone else started whining. You want it?" I should have said no. My eyes burned, my chest still felt tight from the night, and the idea of one more late shift made my nerves itch. "Yes," I heard myself say. She smiled, quick and satisfied. "Knew you'd be a team player." Team player. External policy. Balance adjusted. The words echoed each other in my head as I walked away. Every time the POS chimed, the phantom tag at my wrist gave a tiny answering pulse, like someone had put a loyalty program directly into my nerves. The next little correction came in the form of a man with a cart full of junk. Carver. He's the kind of reseller every discount store knows. Half friend, half parasite. He hits every clearance aisle in a 20-mile radius, flips our leftovers online, and acts like we should be grateful he's clearing our shelves. "Jordan, my man," he said, steering his overloaded cart up to the service desk. "Got a little issue, needs your magic touch." He spread a fan of receipts on the counter like he was playing cards. The paper blurred with line after line of SKUs and discounts. "Your shelf tags and your scanners had a disagreement this morning," he said. "I bought all this on the assumption I was getting the sign price. Register didn't match. We can fix it the easy way, right?" The easy way, in Carver speak, meant give me more money and don't make me call your manager. I picked the top receipt and scanned down it. Every clearance item had little notation marks. For a second, each one looked like it had a tiny extra word next to it. Ode. I blinked, and the handwriting was just his usual scribbles again. "These are already 70% off," I said, tracing the numbers. "What were the signs?" 80, he said. "End of aisle, big red. I can go snap a pic if that helps your confidence." My skin tightened. The receipt in my hand went warm under my thumb. At the very bottom margin, faint letters started to emerge. Associate discretion adjustment available. Not over his total. Off to the side, next to a number I recognized, minus $37.12. The same amount that had appeared in my bank account. The same correction that had just softened my rent. Carver kept talking. "You know how this works. I clear your mistakes, you keep me happy, I keep paying for carts like this. You don't want a regular like me mad at you." He leaned on the counter like he owned it. The tag in my nerves hummed. One little override, and I could offload my mysterious refund right onto his account. As far as the store was concerned, it'd just be a comped price match to keep a high-volume customer sweet. He'd walk away feeling like he'd won. I'd walk away lighter. The receipt shifted again. New words burned in where only I could see them. Balance shift option available. Apply to current customer ID? My thumb tingled. I pictured his garage full of our old stock. I pictured his smug face when he bragged about flipping clearance for triple. I pictured my mom folding a grocery list in half because her pension didn't stretch. Then I thought about the guy in the ball cap again, about how he'd tried to give this thing back, how it had still ended up at my door. "I can't give you more than what's printed on the tag," I said. If the shelf really said 80 and it scanned 70, I can honor the lower visible price once we confirm it, but I'm not. I caught myself before I said moving balances. I'm not inventing discounts that aren't there. His smile thinned. Wow, somebody got corporate overnight. "Policy," I said. "You know how it is." "Yeah," he said. "Policy says you're supposed to fix your mistakes." He snatched up the receipts hard enough to crumple them. "Places like this don't stay afloat without people like me," he said. "Remember that next time your hours get cut." He wheeled his cart away, muttering under his breath. The phantom tag cooled. The ghost words at the bottom of the counter faded, leaving only laminate and scratches. I didn't feel righteous. I felt marked, like I'd been offered an easy out, said no, and the system had quietly taken note. That night, the first real penalty arrived. Not a crash, not a scream, a clip. I was walking out to my car, apron stuffed in my bag, when my phone buzzed. "Door cam alert. Motion detected at your front door." The little thumbnail showed the usual slice of concrete and matte. My shoulders tightened. I opened the app. The frame that loaded wasn't my porch. It was the break room. Same scarred table, same vending machine, same sad corkboard. The angle was from the far corner, where we do not have a camera. The app header still insisted this was front door. The timestamp matched the current time exactly, and in the middle of the frame, sitting at the table with their hands folded, was me. Uniform, badge, slumped shoulders. From the side, but unmistakable. Between my hands sat the figurine. On the table, perfectly centered. Its blank face wasn't pointed at me. It was turned toward the corner where the camera shouldn't be. My real hands shook around the phone. I was in the parking lot. I could see the actual front of the store if I turned my head. My reflection hovered in the glass of the screen, pale and doubled over that still image. In the clip, the version of me at the table moved. It, picked up the figurine, turned it slowly like he was checking for cracks. A thin strip of paper slipped out from under it and fluttered onto the table. The picture stuttered. For a moment, the colors streaked. The timestamp warped into nonsense symbols, the whole frame looking like a buffering stream. Then, in a blink, the feed snapped back to reality. My real front door, my real mat, nothing there. The notification text under the frame updated itself. Instead of the usual clip saved, it now said that the video had been saved and tagged with 2 words I'd already grown to hate. System error. My mouth tasted like pennies. The app offered me a friendly blue button, share clip. Share it with who? Hey guys, my door camera just showed me sitting in a room that doesn't have a camera, holding the object that should be on my kitchen table. I hit delete. The app prompted, "Delete? This clip cannot be recovered." If only that applied to everything, I said, and confirmed. The clip vanished. The weight in my chest didn't. Because that's the rhythm this thing had settled into. It didn't blow out lights or yank me through walls. It didn't roar. It just kept doing what the store system does every day. Adjusting. A reversed fee here, a correction there, a compliment from management, a schedule change, a clip quietly relabeled error. Benefits sliding into place on one side of the ledger, penalties quietly stacking on the other. Line by line, policy by policy, it was turning my whole life into a receipt. And I was starting to understand that somewhere in the fine print, I'd let it mark me not as an employee or a customer, but as inventory.